Hey, this is Juan Corrigan. You listen to The Cultured Bumpkin.
You're listening to The Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips, where we present audiobook quality readings of the classics for your enjoyment. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, just because you're a bumpkin doesn't mean you can't be cultured.
Hey, and welcome to The Cultured Bumpkin. On today's episode, I'm going to interview an old friend. He's an author, he's an actor, he's a voice actor, and he's a 38-year military vet. His name is Juan Corrigan, and he was born in Mexico, grew up in Mississippi, and he's a fellow Mississippi State Bulldog. He graduated with a BS in kinesiology and then a Master of Science in exercise science. I've known him for years. I've known him, probably 30 years, something like that. While in college, he enlisted in the Army National Guard and attended the officer basic course where he was commissioned as an officer. And like I said, he's served over 38 years, including 5 deployments to the Middle East. During his military career, he held several occupational specialties, including artillery, engineers, special forces, and military intelligence. Juan has also appeared as an actor in many films, and his life experiences, both in the military and beyond, have inspired him to write this novel. So let's sit down and get to know Juan and hear about his book as he lets his imagination and his real-world lived experience bring this story to life. Welcome to The Cultured Bumpkin, and I have my good friend Juan Corrigan, who I think no one has ever been on the podcast that I've known as long as Juan, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think I met Juan 25 years ago probably at a 5K, and then we've sort of been in touch off and on, and then lately we've done more. He comes over sometimes for voiceover auditions. We've done a few screen acting auditions here. So anyway, good friend of mine. Juan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a long time. I guess I got to know you from your dad, basically.
Yeah, my dad knew Juan. I think they worked together, or they ran into each other a lot at Mississippi State in the kinesiology department. But yeah, tell us about your, where are you from? What's your educational background, your military background, and let's get to know you a little bit.
Okay, well, I attended Mississippi State back in the mid-'80s. I got my bachelor's in kinesiology. I did an internship at NASA in astronaut training. That was a lot of experience, and I never thought I would ever do that. And then I was crazy enough to get a master's in exercise science. I worked in physical therapy for about 5 years. They sent me to do I guess you could say, to be a massage therapist. And when I did my master's, I did my thesis in massage therapy. So I never thought I'd be doing that, but it worked out well. I've been in the military now. It's 38 years. I'll retire this year. Thank God. It's about time. I've got 5 deployments. I never thought I'd be in the military this long. When I first got in, I thought it was just going to be just a few years. Then 10 years came along, and I was told once you get 10 years, you might as well go for 20. And anyway, you get married and you get kids, and you end up staying. So it's been good.
Well, one, thank you for your service. I remember the first time we met when my dad said, "Hey, this is my friend Juan." I remember I don't remember what you were wearing prior to the 5K, but I remember I've always admired that you have kept yourself in tip-top shape at whatever age I was interacting with you at. Whatever job you've had, you've always been a great leader in that way. So, but thank you for your service to the United States of America. I really appreciate that. So you're an author now. When was the first time, if you can remember, that you thought, I want to write a book?
Well, it all came with my thesis. I did my thesis, and when I actually finished it, I said, I could have wrote a book, because basically a thesis is like writing a book, a lot of research and stuff like that. And then later I was in a cover of a romance novel because I'm also an actor, and I was trying to do certain things back in the 90s, and I got offered to be on the cover of a romance novel. It's called Rocky Mountain Romance. And then that hit me. It's like, wow, well, if I can be on the cover of romance, I could write a book. And then that's where it started coming. And then I came up with an idea of, some guy that knows too much. And whenever you know too much in the government, they're trying to eliminate you. So anyway, things kept coming up. And I wrote a lot of it, started back in 1999. And I did not really finish it all because, of course, life gets in the way. 9/11 came. Then I met my girlfriend, my wife. I had kids, but I would write little by little each time. Then, of course, deployments, and that takes a lot of your time. Every deployment, I thought I'd have time to write it. No, because I was very busy. But I would write a paragraph here, there. And finally, when I came back from my last deployment in Kuwait, which was in 2024, I said, I need to publish it because it was basically done. So that's where it came. And then I looked up a publisher, and I'm very happy that I got New York Book Publishers. They're very knowledgeable. Mr. Jim Bannister, golly, he's guided me through. I was very honored to have him because he told me that he's worked with Tom Clancy, Andy McNabb, and that's because my book is a thriller, and he really liked it. So it went on from there. So that's how it started.
Now, have you ever been a reader yourself? Do you have any books that you felt have influenced you, whether it was out of just pure entertainment or you learned something from them? What are some books that you would, have enjoyed yourself and maybe would recommend to others?
Well, I have read all kinds of books. I've read from books like Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, the series Left Behind. I've read every one of those. Edgar Cayce, oh my God, also self-help books like The Richest Man in Babylon, The Millionaire's Mind, When Opportunity Knocks. So those help you. The Rainmaker. And recently I just ordered one. It's called by Jacob Salams, Speaker Millionaires Secrets. And then another one, Mistakes That Made Me a Millionaire by Kim Powell. Kim Parnell. So those just help you in different ways. I've also read Tom Clancy's books, thrillers, science fictions. So all that kind of puts together. But, a lot of times it's not necessarily what you read. It's your imagination. Because anything can bring an idea, and that idea can make something better. Does that make sense? So that's what happened whenever I started my book. Also, real world situations. There's situations in my book that you go, wow, this sounds real, because they were real. I just changed it. To give you a perspective, I had a cousin that worked for the Justice Police in Mexico, and he shot down a plane that was full of drugs. He did his job, but you would think everybody'd be happy. No, they were mad because that plane was supposed to go across the border. See? And then they were going to falsely charge him and arrest him. He found out about it, so he had to flee, and he had to stay in the U.S. for long periods of time until that regime or whatever, or not regime, but the people back there kind of forgot, they died off or whatever it may be. And then he ended up staying in the U.S. He married an American and Mexican-American world citizen, and he's a welder now, but that's years ago. But that kind of gave me the idea, okay, to put it in my book. Also, military experiences that I've had. So I've met people from the government, both U.S. and Mexico, and other governments. When I was in Afghanistan, I had to be in a lot of meetings because I'm an intel officer, and I was in a lot of classified stuff. And he would give me ideas here and there, and I'll go, "Oh, that's perfect for this." So
now you mentioned Mexico. What's your heritage and that kind of thing. Because I noticed on your upcoming book signings, there's a lot of Mexican cities that are on there. What's up with that?
Well, yes, I was born in the state of Chihuahua, Mexico. My stepdad got transferred to Mississippi, and that's how I ended up in Mississippi. And I'm very happy. Otherwise, I would have been raised in California, and I don't want to be in California. Maybe back then in the 70s, but not today. No, so my mother's from Mexico as well, and I would go to Mexico every summer or every Christmas. So that's how I kept my English and Spanish going. And I would speak English to him and Spanish to my mom, so that helped. Now, this book is basically about a Mexican secret agent that is teamed up with a senator. They know each other through just circumstances, and they team up, and then all of a sudden they start discovering the corruption that the deep state has, not just with Mexico but with America. So, and he gets accused of a crime. He has to flee. He comes to the U.S. The Americans find out that he's here. They call Mexico. He's here. We got to get rid of him because he knows too much. So, and in the end, he's cornered, and it ends here in Mississippi, which is awesome. And he beats both governments, and that's why there's a lot of Mexican, you could say, cities like Mexico City, Puebla, and other that I know I've been to, and of course here in Mississippi as well. So that's why I put it there.
So can you give us, you sort of just did right there, but kind of an overview of the book, but also how did you develop your characters? You know, what kind of things are you drawing on to do your characters? And then, what are some aspects of the book that people would really find interesting?
Well, the characters really came up with a lot of characters of my own. There's a lot of me in there. Esteban is the hero. He comes from a poor background. I wasn't that poor, but I was, you could say, middle class. But I wanted the hero to be from a very poor background. Mother was a maid. Dad was a construction worker. So, and then he ends up basically serving 2 years in the military because his obligation in Mexico, 2 years. He excels. He excels so good that they offer him a place to go to the military academy, which is unheard of. And then he excels there. He number one in the class. The guy is phenomenal. So he chooses branches, special forces, and all this kind of stuff. And he becomes like Mexico's top soldier. And he's even he even goes to different countries to train, the U.S., Israel, and Mexico lends him to go do missions. So that kind of thing. And of course, his mom kind of represents my mom, my grandmother. I've got a lot of names that I have my family names, like the Diaz. I have an uncle his name was Diaz, and others Fernandez, friends that were here or there. So that's how the characters came to be. And I wanted, of course, other characters to have similar real world situations that would impact in when you're reading it, and you're really reading it in his way of his life. And there's a comedy in there. It's got some real funny stuff that he does, and especially his best friend Chavez, because one of my good friends in Mexico when I was a little boy, his name was Jesus Chavez. So Chavez is kind of like his go-to guy. They went to the academy together, and Chavez will do anything for Esteban, anything. Why? Because he saved his life many times, so he feels like he owes him. During Magnum PI, the series, Magnum always called on his buddies to help him out. Basically, Chavez is that way, and Chavez is kind of like the head of the intel, kind of like the head of the NSA, CIA in Mexico. So he's kind of like, whenever he needs a favor, he goes to him, and he kind of helps him out, get information here and there. So that's where characters came up.
One thing that I really like is when an author is a subject matter expert in whatever they're writing about. Because sometimes when you read books, you can kind of tell that the author was sitting in a air-conditioned room just imagining things and never had any real world experience. And I think that's really cool that you, for one, 38 years of military experience, that's incredible. And so when that flavors the writing of a book, there's going to have some pretty intense realism to it. So I think that's awesome. So you've recently been doing some book signings, book readings. What have you done so far, and what do you have coming up in 2026?
Well, so far I've been very lucky to get book signings. Again, I never imagined it'd be like this. I wanted to start in New Albany, Mississippi, because that's where I grew up. And everybody was very friendly. I actually went to the new library, and Miss Sissy Bullock was incredible. It was a very, very, you could say, successful book signing. I met friends, because of course I knew Albany, Mississippi there, from school. I had teachers that come, it's like, so I did, it was very, very, in a way emotional, because golly, you're going back and remember all sorts of stuff. And also, it makes me very proud to come from New Albany, Mississippi. It's a small town. There's a lot of things happening there. But, yeah, I spoke about my experiences that I had there, going to school, and, of course, with my book there. So, and when I met my teachers, my friends, it was back and forth, talk about my book. And then they would ask me a question. Do you remember when you did this? You remember that? So it went back and forth on that. So that was that in New Albany. I've done in Reed's department store, I was very, very honored just to be there, because I was told it's very hard to do a book signing there. And then I did a reading at the, I think, Heritage Museum here in Starkville. And that was very, very successful. I didn't know they even had a museum here. And I had a big crowd there. I really didn't know what to expect, because it's a museum, But I was very, very happy to be there, very honored to be there. And then I did one at the Barnes & Noble, Mississippi State. And that's another big thing for me, because Barnes & Noble is a big organization. I've got another one coming up in Louisville, Mississippi at the library. So, and that should be good too, because it's supposed to be a big event. And then I've got others that are to be determined, because they're trying to find slots. Again, this is my first time to ever do book signings, so it's not like you choose a date. They have to determine when and where, and it's up to either the bookstore or the library to find out. So, but places that right now is to be determined is Barnes & Noble in Flowood, Lemuria in Jackson, possibly the Square at Oxford. Maybe there's a novel bookstore in Memphis. And then, of course, my publisher wants me to go bigger. He wants me to go to Miami, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, of course. And then once my book is translated in Spanish, which is translated, but I have a good friend who's a reporter from Mexico. He's kind of like changing it to the Mexican Spanish, because it was translated too much into Spanish from Spain. Okay. And it has to fit more Latin America. Once that is done, then it opens in Mexico. Then he's already got me places to go in Mexico City, Puebla, Guadalajara, Monterrey, and Chihuahua City. So that'll be this year that I'll be doing book signings there.
So where can someone get your book?
You can order in Amazon.com, Google Books, Apple Books, Barnes & Noble, and I believe Kindle. It should be coming out in audio pretty soon. Agent Esteban Galindo is the government's go-to man for security, discipline, trusted, and dangerously good at what he does. But when an attempted car theft outside the congressional building sets off a chain of unsettling events, Esteban finds himself at the center of a conspiracy that could bring him to his knees. The man he's sworn to protect, Senator Fernandez, one of the last honest men in the government, steeped in corruption, is unlonely standing in the eye of the political storm. As Esteban digs deeper, he unearths a labyrinth of betrayal, ruthless ambition, and hidden alliances.
Juan, thank you very much for coming on. It's great to see you again, for one, as a friend, but also I'm proud of everything you've done, and I really am excited for your success in the future. So thank you for coming on today.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to come here. I hope you get the book. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to The Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips. Thank you very much for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, would you mind going and subscribing and leaving a nice review on whatever podcast platform you heard this on? I would really appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.